So I've been asking myself the question for a while, could I eventually get rid of my laptop and edit all of my videos specifically for this YouTube channel on an iPad? I carry around my iPad more than I ever carry around my computer. My computer sits at home all the time, and the only time I touch it is when I use Final Cut Pro 10. So I constantly got thinking, as I travel more and as I spend more and more time away from my office, it would be really convenient to just be able to use something like the new iPad Pro to edit entirely all of my videos on. I decided to give it a shot, and when I posted on Twitter that I was doing that, I got a ton of responses of so many of you that were curious of what I thought of it and how the whole edit went. So I decided to dive in and see what you guys think and give my feedback in terms of what it was like editing a top to bottom video on the iPad Pro. So first off, this is the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I'm actually going to get rid of the 12.9-inch and go back to the 11-inch because I think that this is actually too big for what I actually need. And because the processors are identical in them, it doesn't matter. Everything I'm about to say works regardless. The 12.9-inch is really nice for editing video, I must say, because the size makes it bigger, it's easy to see more, and it just works really well. But at the end of the day, I still feel like it's too big to carry around. This video was entirely about a program that I use all the time called Frame.io. It was a video that I posted specifically about just how useful it was. You can watch that video in the description. I'll put a link to that. But for the sake of this testing, it's more just to show you kind of how it worked, how the edit looked, how things actually worked. So I have to say right away that I was first of all blown away by just how smooth and how seamless the actual editing was in terms of playback. As you can see here, when I scrub around, it just scrubs in real time. This is all 4K footage shot from this A7 III. It's all 4K. I even did some overlaying 4K of another clip over top of it. No issues whatsoever. As you can see, I can scroll and scrub around as much as I want. That's something I can't even do in Premiere very well at all, and I can do it in Final Cut, but I was blown away by just how good it was. And you can see that if I hit the play button, it just immediately starts to play. My audio is working, no sort of stuttering. It just works so well. I can scrub around, I can double tap on something, it takes me right into the editing of it. I can adjust color, I can do all that kind of stuff. I decided to look at this edit similar to how I would in any YouTube video, and I did the entire edit top to bottom, including color, including LUTs, audio, everything. And I was surprised just how actually easy it was. Now, at the time that I did buy this 12.9-inch, they did not have one of the Folio keyboard cases with it. That's always something that I prefer to have. They didn't have one yet for this 12.9-inch in that store, so I had to do this whole edit without it. I will say right away, ever since I got the 11-inch now and I have the actual Folio case, it's definitely better having a keyboard when you're doing any sort of editing because you have keyboard shortcuts to split things and delete things and move things around. Definitely prefer to have that. For this edit, I didn't have anything. I only had the Apple Pencil and my hands, and I was surprised that it still was as seamless as it was. I definitely think if you're gonna edit with an iPad Pro, no matter what, you should definitely have the Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil to me is like the mouse, and it really just makes a huge difference, especially when you're talking about keyframing or choosing little edits or refining edits. It just makes it so much more precise to use this, so I really like having this. That's something that I think is mandatory if you have any iPad Pro, because it is just so useful when you have it. One thing I felt like was the most cumbersome part of editing on an iPad, and it might just be a Sony thing, it might just be something that I have to get used to, but simply importing footage and getting it ready to use was just a hassle. I don't like the fact that I had to import it into my library first, and then I had to choose it from the library because I have iCloud as kind of my overall photo storage thing, so every time I'm importing clips, it then has to back them up to the cloud, and it becomes really annoying. Some people have mentioned the idea of possibly doing like an external hard drive wireless route and doing it that way, but I just wish that I could import something directly into LumaFusion, create my project, do whatever I want, and then delete the whole thing and the files delete with it. I don't like having to do it to my photo library because if I import 60 or 100 gigs worth of footage to be able to edit, then they're having to upload to the cloud and they're taking up space. It just is not the way I want to do it. I would love there to be a project library similar to Final Cut where I can import all my stuff, make all my edits, and then simply delete that project and everything deletes with it. I'm really hoping that can somehow change. Then when it comes to importing footage for Sony, it's just a complete nightmare. You have to actually import the videos to my Mac to airdrop them to the iPad to even use them in the first place because it doesn't recognize a video file. So my GH5 works no problem being able to import things directly to the iPad, but I can plug the Sony directly into the actual iPad and all it shows up are the photos. I cannot import any video. it is just such a hassle, because if I have to import them to my computer to then bring them over to the iPad, well, that defeats the whole purpose in the first place. So I really hope that can be cleared up soon, because that was by far the most annoying part. Once I got into the editing, I was fine, but the problem is that took forever to get there. So as you can see here, my clips up here in the top left-hand corner, you can see that I had about 7 or 8 clips. I recorded these all at my house before I left, and then decided to just import them on the iPad and edit on the plane. And as you can see, I could scrub between them all. I can choose my in and out points really simply with these little spots here and there. I can scrub back and forth. One thing that I will say I missed very much about Final Cut Pro, and it's maybe something that I use a lot more than anyone else, is continuous playback. In Final Cut, when I'm editing a lot of videos for this YouTube channel, I have continuous playback on, which when it gets to the end of a clip in the browser, it jumps right to the next one and continues on all the way through. That's how I go through and do all my rough cut edits, and I hit my in and out markers and I throw them down the timeline, then I refine. So it was a little bit trickier to get used to being able to do this and having to have it show up in the preview bar first, choose your in and out points, edit it down. But that's something that is just maybe just the way I edit. Everyone else, I know a lot of people just prefer to do it this way. But editing was really, really simple. It was just like you're used to, just being able to select an in point. You can refine the little out point here, front and back. You can just hit the out point. You can just drag it right down into where it's supposed to be. Or you can actually just use a keyboard shortcut and it drops it down, which is even faster. But really simple, as you can see. You can just drop things in. It will move things over, kind of like the magnetic timeline on Final Cut. It will just move things around, and when you move things around, it will just take the other clips and move them in, and it's really, really seamless and really smooth. I was surprised how good it actually worked. I was able to go in a section like this and just literally double tap the clip that I wanted that picture-in-picture to be. I just could go right to this first part of size. I was able to just size it the way I wanted, cropped it front and back. It's nice being able to just move it around really simply, and with the Apple Pencil plus even just your finger, moving things around in LumaFusion when you're doing that kind of stuff is just so much faster than a keyboard or a mouse or a computer, because having just touchscreen ability to put it where you want and then continue on was really, really nice. I liked that a lot. I was also able to just save these presets for attributes like the size and the position, so when I did another picture-in-picture, I could just copy it. It was really, really nice to do that. So one thing that I was missing a ton, and I'm hoping it comes in LumaFusion, or maybe somehow I'm missing it, but edits that I use all the time on my keyboard on my actual MacBook Pro in Final Cut are my top and tail edits, where I literally can just go to a certain part, I can cut the front and it just cuts right to that spot. Especially in my second phase of revising the edit, I use that all the time. I did not have that, so it was a little bit weird for me to get used to kind of scrubbing like this and really cutting off the end or cutting off the beginning. But like anything, I guess it's just something you get used to. But I'm hoping they add those edits very soon, or maybe I'm just missing them. But one thing that I do a lot in editing is I will do J and L edits with audio, meaning I will take a piece of an audio and let it go longer than what the video was, so I can have a nice crossfade between two clips, specifically for jump cuts and all those things. It really smooths it out. In Final Cut, that's as simple as just double clicking and just dragging it really quickly, and the fade can be applied with just scrolling over. A little bit different in here, I had to triple tap it. It detaches the audio, then I bring it over here. I really wish there was a quicker way to just do a little drag right from the outside side of a clip and just fade in or fade out on audio. There's no way to like drag that, and I naturally want to do that because I do that all the time with Final Cut, and it saves me a ton of time. So it'd be nice if there were little handles here on the right and left side that I could just make that a fade. So I have to go through a bunch of those clips, triple tap them, and detach the audio and do the fades in and out. I don't like necessarily how it detaches the audio, because then when you move things around, they disconnect. Where in Final Cut, I kind of drop down the audio. I can do that J and L cut, but it doesn't actually detach. It still stays with it. So something to get used to, because as soon as it's detached, it's kind of permanently detached, I think. So you got to watch so you don't move things around after the fact. So audio, I wasn't crazy about. They did a decent job with the actual keyframing of audio. I can go right into a clip and I can hit on that bottom little guy there, and I can go to a specific spot that I want to start a fade, and I can just add a keyframe. I can move over a little bit to another spot, add another keyframe, and then just bring that volume down, and as you see, it just makes the fade nicely. So that's really nice and quick and easy, but it would be even quicker if I could just make those keyframes right in this little spot and click the dot and just move it, rather than having to go to a thing and then move the volume up and down. I really would love to be able to just choose that little dot and actually click it with the Apple Pencil and just move it up and down. It would make it so much easier if I could just tap in that line and create the keyframes and move them around. hopefully that'll be something they can add. Audio is definitely where I felt like it struggled the most, just because I'm so obsessed with audio and so obsessed with editing things a certain way. I didn't like that I don't have an actual just like regular EQ. They have different things like distortion and compressors and filters, and they have like an N-band EQ, but I just want like my traditional form of EQ. I use one specifically called FabFilter that I use all the time, and I like having a visual EQ that I can just adjust things with and pinch to choose the cue. And these are all things that just are really important to me because audio is so important to me. Probably to you they don't matter as much, but that was something I was desperately missing, was just the audio control inside this. I think it will get better and better, but as of right now, it's just not exactly where I'd love it to be. They had a parametric EQ, but the problem is it was only one frequency that I could adjust for it, so I couldn't add more and more parametric EQs. Once I had that one, I could adjust the frequency I wanted to and bring the cue and adjust the gain, but I want to see that visually, and I also want to be able to add more and more because I want to be able to cut certain frequencies and boost others. Every time I edit videos, I'm doing those kind of things. Most people don't care about it like I do. That's something I desperately missed. So after I made all my cuts and my audio adjustments, I then got into color, and this is where I was actually blown away by just how good this actually was. Being able to simply tap on a clip and go right into color here and adjust all the color settings, plus have LUTs and everything available, was amazing to me. I was really impressed by just how quick it was to add color correction, as you can see in a clip like this where I initially had it shot and my white balance was way off because I was shooting this myself and I couldn't really see the screen. Then as I was able to just add an original color preset there and then just start to adjust all my things like I normally would, you have adjustments for your greens and your blues and everything, I was able to get it looking a little closer there. Then I was able to simply add a LUT on top of it, and I just ended up loving the way that it came out, and it was really quick, really easy to do. I loved having the control. All touchscreen, really simple. It was nice because right when I was done, I could just save that preset and name it and then just import it into other clips and have no problem just getting the same look in all the different shots. So that was great. Now, one thing that was really hard to get used to was that they didn't have adjustment layers. And if you're not familiar with adjustment layers, I use them all the time for things like LUTs, because if I want to apply an overall LUT to the entire video, I don't have to put in each clip. I put in an adjustment layer and it affects everything underneath it. I can't seem to find where adjustment layers are. I don't think they exist yet, but they really hopefully need to soon, because it was really frustrating having to go into every single clip and add the LUT to. I just want to be able to put it to all. And yes, you can save a preset where I can just copy attributes from one to the next, but that still takes time. I have to choose each individual clip and paste the attributes from the other one, and one after another after another. As you can see, I have a lot of different cuts here, so that took a while. Adjustment layer would have been so much easier to simply just put on the top and put that LUT on everything, and it would be done. But I mean, maybe I'm asking too much, maybe I'm just missing it, but I hope they can add adjustment layers very soon, because that was a little bit annoying to get used to. So then after I was all done, I was able to open up the audio mixer here. I was able to hit play, just kind of look at my levels. I was able to adjust things. It would be really nice from an audio perspective if I somehow could put one of those effects that they had over top of an actual whole track. So if I wanted to put a limiter on it or some sort of EQ, instead of having to adjust each individual file, which is kind of annoying, it would be nice to put some sort of filter or some sort of limiter or some sort of effect whatsoever on the overall track that everything is contained on. That would make it much easier to make my overall edits for, but maybe that'll come in the future as well, or once again, maybe I'm missing it. This is the first time I ever did a top to bottom edit, so hopefully I'm missing it. If I am, please tell me in the comments below. But I did all my edits. I looked at the audio mixer. I was able to bring master volume, get things to sound pretty good how I wanted, was able to mix audio the way I wanted, and the edit came out pretty good, I think. Top to bottom, this edit only took me maybe 2.5 hours or so on the plane, which I didn't think was bad at all because I obviously had never used this before. And it was really nice because I literally hit export. I exported the movie and I was able to upload it to YouTube on my LTE network on my iPad, which is awesome, because part of why I want to use the iPad more when I travel is it would be really nice to be able to edit something on the go, constantly be picking it up wherever I'm at, make some edits, continue on, and then when I'm done to just upload it to YouTube via the LTE is awesome. I have unlimited data, so I can do that, and that was really nice for me because I was able to edit it in different spots. I was at the bar for a little bit eating lunch during the airport. I grabbed and made a few revisions. I did some on the plane. I was able to do things on the go very quickly and efficiently rather than having to get the whole laptop out and do all that stuff. So that's kind of what is enticing to me about this idea of possibly editing more things on the iPad. So that's kind of some of my initial initial impressions, my first time using LumaFusion Pro, I think that it's absolutely the future of how people are going to edit, especially the everyday person who doesn't get into the detail like us as video professionals may. I mean, obviously being able to have an iPad, convenient, the screen is great, touch screen, everything's really, really nice. It'll be nice to see how they continue to evolve in this. I decided to use LumaFusion over Adobe Rush, which is their big competitor now, because they don't have 4K yet. I'm interested to see what else they do. I really am interested to see what Apple eventually does with maybe a Final Cut Pro for the iPad. I think there's huge potential in that as well. But overall, I'm just super impressed with how seamless this is. I know people that have really, really beefed up PCs that can't even run this stuff simultaneously in Premiere. So being able to do it on my iPad is just phenomenal. But hopefully I was able to answer some of the questions that maybe you had about editing on the iPad. A lot of you had asked questions when I posted that on Twitter, and my overall kind of feedback is that it is really, really good. It's amazing how powerful it is. 4K video was no problem whatsoever. Multiple streams of 4K, no problem at all. The Apple Pencil is a must. I also recommend getting the keyboard, but man, we are making huge jumps in terms of just capability from these iPads, and I love the idea that maybe there can be a day that I can bring around an iPad only, because right now I carry around my iPad all the time, and the only time I get my computer is for Final Cut. It would be nice if this was the only thing that I could eventually carry around. So I think it's coming soon, but thanks for watching. See ya.